taught how to create budgets, but then
Hmm.
they have to create a budget?
They have
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
they have to manage a budget. The state will give them X amount of money,
Absolutely.
and they have to know how to budget that money and how to divvy it out, not only for salaries, there's stagnant salaries, but like when you have improvements on the building that needs to be done, they don't know how to budget money. So if they know, just like when you're at home, if you have a furnace problem, you know in 3 years you got to buy a new furnace. So you want to start setting some money aside. Administrators are not taught how to set certain monies aside. And I know that those that work with grants, you have to spend all of your grant money by the end of the year. Because
Absolutely.
because if you don't, they'll take that money back. And then the next year your grant will be smaller. But there is, I wouldn't call it discretionary funds, and I forgot what they actually call it, to help with the upkeep of your building.
Wow. Now, my eyes are getting open to a lot of problems going on here. Some of this I didn't even know. For example, are you telling me that people that do all their certifications, they're qualified to teach, they're administrators get paid more, right?
Right.
But they don't teach them how
Apparently.
to handle the money that they are that their job entails.
You
So
have
there's
to
a
understand.
problem there with how the administrators are being worked. Is that true?
It, it could be, but it can't. It doesn't have to be, because what happens is when you do your budget, you when you're requesting money from the state, you're going to tell them what you're going to need money for future expenses. And if someone doesn't know, and what the state will do when they allocate the money, they're going to allocate it for encumbrances. And that's money that has to be spent on that particular thing. If it's the furnace, it can only be spent on the furnace. It can't be spent to buy books. Because if you take those encumbered funds and you use them somewhere else, you'll get penalized. Those are
So
they're appropriate and they're set aside. So if you don't have someone who understands that particular piece, you're going to mishandle the funding. You're going to mishandle the grant money. You or not use it properly or use it up. I don't know if you remember when the government had surpluses of monies, they would buy a whole bunch of ridiculous things just to use up that money.
right.
That's what can happen. And in the school system, if you that is the most important part, because you got to determine how many teachers you're going to be paying, what their salaries are, and any extra curricular activities that might go on.
Could I make a quick comment about the difference in districts as well? We've lived in a couple different districts now as a family, and something that my eyes were really open to, the one that we're in now is quite a bit wealthier than the previous one we were in. It's not just like taxpayer dollars going to the school. You can have extremely involved parent teacher associations with a huge surplus of money, where you've got kids who already have an advantage being in the community that they're in, et cetera, having it more advantages piled on because you've got this network of parents that can just throw money at the school, as opposed to some districts where you've probably got the teacher contributing their own funding to notebooks so the kids have something to write in. And I'm speaking from personal experience there. That's not some theoretical, I just made up a story. That has really been a huge eye opener. I can't imagine being the teacher kind of in the middle ground there, Calvin, trying to expand those young minds, trying to teach them the ways of the world when you've got people who are so far behind an equal starting line, i.e., the children and the families that they're coming from. It's almost a deficit that it almost feels impossible to make it up. So, my hat's off to the folks who are just trying to live that struggle and make lives better for the kids, which takes me back to yes, the kids are suffering, but as an adult, trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who's on the front lines trying to solve that problem, I don't know how to do it. And I just wish that there was more appreciation in some communities for how good you have it. Just knowing that you've got stuff like a PTA, knowing that your kids have gym shoes that they can wear, knowing that you can take field trips, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my little bit of a rant. Thanks for letting me interject.
Absolutely, Amy. Thank you for that. Question for anyone that wants to take it. Would it be a better system of divvying out money from the state if a specified amount would be issued for each student?
That
Put the
that's
money, put the
um,
money in a pool, and for all areas, all communities, each student gets X amount of money assigned to that school for what the students need. Would that
but
system work?
isn't that one of the concepts that charter schools have? Because they're paid, the charter schools get their funding based on the number of students that come in.
That's
Okay.
the key right there. It's
If
the
I'm
the state will give you money, but it's based on the attendance. So if
right.
you're in a school that has 500 kids, just to,
Mhm.
and only 300 of them show up, the next year, the state is only going to give you money for those 300 kids that showed up.
Correct.
But if you have a school in a poorer community and the kids are definitely coming to school, okay, let's say they are, let's say they are, why can't they get the same money as a more wealthy community? Let's say they are.
Because
But
I
those are just the issued funds. You can still get the extra funds from areas like parents and fundraisers and so on. Like it might do a little bit to level the playing field. I don't have direct experience with that, but to me, it feels like it's still not really addressing the issue.
It's state governments. I mean, and a lot of our state governments are run by people who don't want to have public education. They don't want people educated, and they want everything to be privatized. Like everything should be a business.
Right.
It's private, and public education is what makes our country you know what it's supposed to be. And we're supposed to be an informed democracy, so we need to educate people. But a lot of our state politicians, I mean, here in Kansas, we had to live through Sam Brownback, and he decided to give all business people tax breaks. They don't have to pay taxes anymore. If you're a dentist, you don't have to pay taxes anymore. And he cut all the money out of the schools, and our local superintendent had to like fight the governor of the state in court to try to get enough money to keep schools open. I see so much oversight of what money schools have because it's a state government, and then there's a school board that has to agree on everything that's spent and what gets spent where. And then every school I work in has a treasurer that has to deal with the school district to get funds to work on a project for that school. So there's a lot of oversight over a little amount of money that could be so much more to serve our kids, especially students in need and students at risk. Because I work in a school district where the schools I serve with garden programs, all of these students live in food deserts. All of these students live in places where there are not resources available to them. Some of the very poorest parts of the whole state of Kansas, economically speaking. And these schools are lifelines to these students. And teachers are like social workers nowadays, and counselors, and they do so much work. I just see schools horribly underfunded in so
Mm-hmm.
many ways.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Mark. And I'm glad you mentioned about the governor because I had a question about the pandemic. I know it's in the rearview mirror, but it's not that far away. We still can see it. There's still some outlying effects from that 2 year period. And in my research, I was reading about how in some of the states, the governors wanted to lift the mask mandate, regardless of what was going on in the school, regardless of the safety of the teachers, they wanted to lift it. Parents, surprisingly for a large portion, agreed with lifting the mandates. Maybe because at that time kids weren't getting affected by COVID as much as adults. I don't know what their reasoning was, but it became, like the politicians really against like the teachers, and the teachers were, I feel, victimized. They were made to feel that they had no protection coming from the state or the politicians in a lot of areas. I see you all nodding your head. I'm going to ask anyone that wants to speak on that. Maybe Charlie. Any thoughts on that?
I don't. I'm going to defer to the others first here, if you don't mind, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Well, I would say that that is evident of what the school administration is to the teachers. They are not protecting the teachers. That's another reason why there is such a discourse and teachers are leaving, because they are not respected in the sense of, you don't respect my health issues. I don't have to divulge my health issues to you because I don't have to, but you're putting me in a predicament where, like Mark said at the beginning, you have one teacher sitting in a classroom, a closed classroom with 35 kids. That's 35 people breathing at me. You know what I'm saying? You don't know where these kids have been. Not trying to be funny, but you have 35 people sitting, 36 people sitting in a closed room, and they're breathing, and we're all intaking each other's whatever you have, cold. If you've ever seen how a cold, just a common cold, spreads through a school district, it is like the plague, because you are trapped in these rooms. And one of the solutions that Chicago Public Schools came up with was to open a window that'll ventilate. How much air can go out of a window? And let's talk about a 25-degree winter where the wind is blowing in. We already got these kids sitting up in these big heavy coats. Now they're sitting in there sweating. So now I'm getting their perspiration. Amy's laughing. But this is another reason why teachers are leaving, because the school districts and the government now is not respecting their health.
Well, I haven't had kids blow and breathe on me like that. However,
oh yeah, they'll do it.
It happens every day.
Oh, but wait a minute. I have watched several of them in line at the supermarket in front of me, and the things the kids do with their fingers and their noses, it's amazing. I found myself just moving back and moving back and moving back. And it was like more than 6 feet, and that wasn't even mandated, okay?
And let's not forget, kids get sick in classrooms.
Yes.
So it comes out of one end or the other on occasion. A kid may be sick because parents will send their kids to school sick. And the teacher has to be the brunt of it. 9 times out of 10, that kid walks up to the teacher and says, "I'm sick." Okay. So here we have again, the administrator's not caring about me because projectile comes out. Okay. I don't want to get too gross, but
Got you. Got you. So let's talk about possible solutions. We have teachers that are underpaid. We have teachers that are not respected as, in my opinion, the heroes that they are. We have teachers that can't get money that's needed in a lot of cases, and they have to come out of pocket. What is really some of these solutions
I'm sorry. Can I add one other thing that happens?
that we can apply to this?
Teachers are being threatened also by students. There are some teachers that are in classrooms and children are threatening them. And if they try to protect themselves, they're the ones that get reprimanded and suspended and fired. So the state and the government protects the kid that just attacked this adult.
Well, yes, but you know what? I have found that pretty much at any job, it's pretty much